My overall take on the federal budget, it's fine. I mean, Prime Minister Mark Carney faced impossible expectations. I was expecting a pretty elaborate Saturday night prime rib dinner, and he didn't serve up breakfast for dinner, but it was more like a midweek roast chicken. It didn't feel like a once in a generation kind of meal. The expectations were so high because of the times that we live in, for sure, but also what the Liberals telegraphed. There was going to be big investments and big sacrifices. And while there were certainly big investments, the sacrifices are mostly going to be felt by the public service. The deficit will come in around $78 billion, much higher than 2024 at $61 billion, and much, much lower than the pandemic deficits of 2021 at over $320 million. The other interesting number for us to keep our eye on is interest charges, which will hover around $71 billion, just to keep us on side with our national debt. And I really, really do not like that. The big theme coming in here, spending less to invest more. And the government is investing in a number of areas, as they said, defense, ports, rail lines, and lowering spending in the public service. Investing in these areas, I think, is the right move, given the current relationship with the US and the need to diversify our trading partners. It'll also bring in some jobs. We're going to have to staff defense. We're going to have to build the ports and the railways. And hopefully all this will improve both productivity and access to new trade routes. Cuts to public service, as difficult as they will be for individuals, and they will be difficult, makes sense to me. It is replacing service jobs in the private sector that is a big phenomenon because of artificial intelligence. And I think the same needs to occur in the public sector as well. We need to focus on the efficiency of every single tax dollar spent, and that means innovating in federal departments where that is possible. Service Canada, the CRA, all that. AI can't replace the construction jobs required to build the ports, so shifting some of that focus from one area to the other makes some sense to me. One of the sectors that I follow pretty closely is banking, and bank competition in particular. And there was a change here in terms of bank transfer fees on investments. This budget has said that those will go away, which makes total sense. I mean, imagine you wanted to change auto mechanics or change coffee shops and you had to pay a fee to do so. It's a bit absurd. So that will change. And the theory here is that it will reduce the friction of switching between institutions, and that'll hopefully increase more competition. This is inside of a much bigger context on something called consumer-driven banking, or open banking as it used to be known. This is the idea that you, the client, control your data and you can access it when you want. You can share it with whomever you choose. Currently, this, your data is kind of held hostage by your institution. For better competition, that really, really needs to change. And in this budget, the government announced that legislation will be passed that will enable simpler data sharing in 2027. I talked to some industry folks today, and they say this development is significant. It's huge. So we'll see how that unfolds. There were changes that had been promised in terms of tax filing for low-income Canadians. I think this is a great move. Automatic tax filing for 5 million low-income and vulnerable Canadians makes tons of sense. And it's important because it makes it easier for people in need to receive government benefits that they're already entitled to. So the GST-HST tax credit and the Canada Child Benefit. There was also a cut in the tax rate applied to the lowest federal tax bracket. It goes from 15% down to 14%. So for people who that is relevant to, it would save an individual like $400 a year, two-income household double that. Now, there wasn't all that much in terms of housing affordability, an announcement on GST, HST for first-time home buyers buying new builds under $1 million. But the bigger idea on housing affordability is kind of playing out in the market versus the government. And that is interest rates and lower immigration are putting pressure on housing prices, depending on where you live. It's a very different market across the country, but that seems to be what's mitigating those price concerns. Maybe good for buyers, not so good for sellers at this time. So that is my 2 cents or 3 cents on today's reaction to the federal budget.